The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. My name is Brian Gaddotti, and I'm a Customer Success Manager with Newforma. And today we're going to be discussing Newforma Project Center, how to simplify your submittals process. Now, a little bit of this conversation may be review. You might know a little bit of what we're talking about today, but what I really wanted to focus on a little bit today was our integration with Bluebeam Studio Prime, our newest connector, and we'll get into connectors in a little bit and what they mean, is the connection into the Bluebeam Studio Prime application or offering that Bluebeam offers. So if we jump into it really, really quickly, we'll get into today's agenda. And what we're going to start on is give you a little bit about Newforma, where we feel we help, where we feel we kind of fit in the market, why project information management is important. We'll go into the value of Newforma, jump into a demonstration. Of course, I'll be answering questions, so feel free to enter your questions in the GoToWebinar questions pane, and I will try and respond to them as soon as I see them, when we have a little bit of a break in the demonstration. But at the end, I will set apart a specific time for questions as well. And then at the end, if you want to have more conversation, if you want to learn a little bit more about what Newforma does, I'll have a slide where you can reach out to us and ask any questions or take a look at other facets of the product as well. So Newforma is all about trying to assist in the challenge of project delivery. The largest kind of challenge that we hear about is that there are so many players, right? There's the design team, the contractors, consultants, subs, the owner, and making sure that everyone has the same information, and kind of better yet, that you have all the information that you're going to need in relation to all of these different areas or partners on this project. It gets very difficult and gets very confusing. And that's why we created Newforma Project Center. What we want to do is create what we have kind of called or coined a project information management system. And we get a lot of questions about what that is, right? What is PIM, as we call it? And the easiest way for me to explain it is that there are really two areas of programs or two areas of applications that a business tries to grab, or construction firms or engineering or design firms in general kind of float towards. One of them is project management systems. So we need a way to track RFIs, submittals, take care of field reports, look at change orders, etc. And then the other is information management. What are we doing with our documents? How do we search through these? How do we find them? How are we tackling the ongoing growth of email on a project? And how do we take this information and share it externally? And so what project information management and what Newforma is meant to be is kind of a link between these two. Right? How do we take project management tasks like RFIs, submittals, etc., and marry that with information management? The goal at the end is to, better understand what your files are, where they live, what they're in relation to, right? I'm looking for that one email that was sent 2 years ago that was associated with the submittal. In Newforma, you can easily find that. Today's focus is going to be a little bit more on the project management area, simplifying that submittal process, how we do it today, and how our Bluebeam enhancements kind of allow you to facilitate that a little bit easier. And so today's focus is going to be on Bluebeam. We have a list of what we're calling our connector. So a big strategy that Newforma is working on is that we know that there's a lot of what we consider to be best-in-class construction projects out there, or products, I should say. Bluebeam definitely being one of them. Revit, AutoCAD, BST is a great accounting system that we integrate with. The latest and greatest that we've come out with for our connectors is Bluebeam, and that's what we'll focus on today. The goals with our creation of our Bluebeam integration was that we, again, wanted to integrate with best-in-class technology. We wanted you guys not only to get a submittal into the system, but also respond to it with less work. We wanted easier individual review. So if you're an engineering firm that's not necessarily prime on many projects and you just need to take care of something that you get, we wanted to facilitate that, while at the same time allowing you to kind of push this out to external individuals, consultants, collaborators, and allow them to mark up this document or respond based on any device that they have available. And Bluebeam really stuck out to us because not only do they have a nice application for the PC, but they also have applications for iPads and things like that that integrate with Studio. So we wanted to be able to leverage that technology as well. We also, at the end of this process, wanted you to get a single file back instead of multiple files based on everyone's responses. So all of these kind of led us to starting this journey with the collaboration of Bluebeam Studio Prime. So let's go through this really, really quickly. A really nice workflow on the RFI or submittal process. Submittals right now, RFI is coming soon with Bluebeam Studio Prime. So if we start from the far left, and we're looking at this from a design perspective in this slide. So let's just say that someone sends you the submittal. You log it into Newforma, and I'll show you how to do that today via email. But there's some also other ways to get a submittal into Newforma as well. And if you want to kind of cover that, let us know. We'd be more than happy to meet with you guys one-on-one and go through the full-blown submittal workflow inside of Newforma. From there, we push it from Newforma into Bluebeam Studio to whatever collaborators we need, right? Let's just say we have an architect and we have a design engineer. From there, they're able to collaborate together on the same exact PDF inside of Bluebeam Studio. You end up getting one document back. We also have a new option if you're familiar with our submittals area where you're able to forward this externally. Not only do we have info exchange, which is what we call our project website where individuals externally can gain access to a lot of the information using a web browser, but we also have a new option for Bluebeam Studio. So this is the multi-reviewer process, and this is what we'll be going over today. There is, however, a single reviewer process. Again, if you're not a prime engineer and you just need to respond to something very quickly, we also wanted to allow you to mark up in a Bluebeam Studio session directly off of filing that submittal into Newforma. So very similar workflow. Someone sends you a submittal. You get it into Newforma. At the same time, you open it up with Bluebeam Studio, make your markups on that, close it out, send it back to whoever sent it to you. Really nice, really simplified way to grab a piece of information, make those markups, and send it back out. So let's jump into it. Today's conversation is going to be very heavily based on demonstration, not going to be a bunch of PowerPoint work. So let's get out of this, jump into this. And here is Newforma. So a really quick kind of high-level view on how Newforma organizes information. Newforma is organizing information based on projects. So in this view, you see I have two projects right in front of me. I have my Alpen Grove Science Center project, and I have my One Oak Street project. Now, both of these projects have information, both of these projects have email, both of these projects have files, both of these projects have submittals. But because we want all of this information to be project specific, we organize them in such a way. Now, these projects are underneath the My Projects flag. And the reason that they're there is I want to be able to see the information that I care about right away. If I'm working on two projects, I want to be able to see those two projects right away. If I'm working on 5 projects, I want to be able to see those 5 projects right away. But I also want to be able to go into all projects and take, a step back and look at projects that have been open, for the last 5 years, or maybe a project that just recently went into archive status. I want to be able to see the information, even if it's not an active project, and even if I'm not necessarily assigned to that specific project. If I jump into a project, it brings me to my home screen. Now, this home screen has all the different what we call activity centers associated with Newforma. Everything from project files and project emails to submittals, RFIs, info exchange for sending out transfers. The really big thought is that we want to organize this information so if you need to find something, you can find it very easily. If you have any questions on any of this, I really suggest jumping onto our website. I do a webinar every single month. We have all these webinars recorded and on our website as well. So if you want to explore a little area that we're not going to be covering today, it's a great place to look. We also have a submittals and RFIs area. Now the submittals area has all the submittals that I have associated with this project in one spot. So I can see all the submittals associated with a number of logs. So I have my under review submittals. I have my all submittals. Awaiting action would be they're waiting on me and my team. Forwarded for review are ones that have been forwarded out, right, to a external collaborator that I might be waiting on. Response overdue, right? We can organize these in a number of different ways. We can also search throughout the top. So I can search by submittal ID, by the subject of that submittal, by status, by discipline. We really want this to be an organizational tool so that you can find what you're looking for, again, very quickly and very easily. If I go back to my home screen, we need to get a submittal into Newforma so we can send it out using Bluebeam Studio Prime, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to jump into my email. And Brian, late last night, sent me a new submittal, right? It's my webinar submittal, I call it. I can take this and I can file it to the project using our Newforma add-in directly in Outlook. So I'll come in here, I'll file this into the project, and I can file as directly out of Outlook. What this does is this creates an item inside of Newforma automatically based off of the information in this email. So I have an email that's a submittal. That email has an attachment to it. I'm just going to save this as a submittal in Newforma. Select my project. Select what I want to create. Again, I can create a submittal, but I can also create other things inside of Newforma, like an action item or an RFI or a change order proposal or a proposed change order, right? A potential change order. I can do a lot of that information automatically. I can also come in here and either select a new item, or if someone emails me a response to an existing submittal, I can just hit review a response and save it that way. I'll save this as a new item. When I do that, it's going to ask me a few questions. Do I just want to log this as a received submittal? Do I have a list of expected submittals that maybe that I want to use? I'll just log this as a new one. And the really nice thing about Newforma is that we're going to pull up this form without you needing to go into Newforma at all, and we're going to pre-populate a lot of this information. We know things like who it's to, right? It's to Adam. It's from Brian with the subject of webinar submittal. We can automatically associate a due date with it. There's a setting in the back end of Newforma that says, hey, submittals on this specific project are set to 9 days or 9 business days in the future. I can set reminders. So remind me 2 days before this is due. So on the 15th, I get an email saying, hey, just an FYI, that webinar submittal is due in 2 days. We're automatically bringing the body of that email into remarks, automatically bringing in those files and creating a description of contents automatically. We're bringing them in that email and associating that email with this submittal as well. So now in Newforma, I can go in, take a look at the emails and say, hey, show me all the emails that are associated with the submittal. Again, we want to organize this information as much as we can, allow you guys to know what information is pertaining to what contract management, contract administration issue or item. The only thing that I should have to come in here and do manually is select my spec section. So I'll come in here and let's say this is a lighting submittal. I'll just come in here, select lighting, hit OK, and now it's automatically put in my lighting spec. From here, I get to select my next action. From a design perspective, you could, if you wanted to, respond and close to this, require a resubmittal right now, right? You don't need to go through the process if you just need to, need more information, or if, someone accidentally forgot to send an attachment or something like that. You can just respond and close, require resubmittal, it's done. For an engineer, if you're not prime on a project, you can also just from here mark up in Bluebeam Studio. Right? Let's save it into Newforma, automatically mark it up in Bluebeam, and respond to it right now. If you want to forward this externally, you always have the ability to forward for review. So if you are prime on a project, or if you're looking at this from an architect's perspective, forward for review, we're going to compress those files, save those into Newforma, and ask you where you want to send them out and how you want to send them out. So I can send them out using InfoExchange. That's that project website that we talked about, a really nice way for external individuals to gain access to the information that you decide to share with them. There's also a Bluebeam Studio option, and that's what we're going to be doing today. I did see a question come in. One of the questions was, where does the spec section list populate from? Is it project specific? So the spec list that I have access to, this is our demo environment. It's an import that we did from an Excel list. We can also integrate with tools like Avitru's master spec application. So if you're using master spec, you can push those directly into Newforma as well. They are project specific. However, you can copy those from project to project by using our Newforma templates option. So if you have a spec list or if you create a sample project that you just want to pull from, you can absolutely do that in our product as well. So I'm going to send this via Bluebeam Studio. And when I do that, it's going to ask me, okay, who do you want to send this to? The really nice, and I guess we're logging in too. So I'll come in here and log in. Fat finger my password. There we go. All right, so it's going to ask me who I want to send this to. So we're going to forward this for review. I'm going to send this over to, let's just say I'm going to send this to me. Let's also send this to John McLean. He's an engineer on the project. So we'll say this is due back from John and from Brian on the 11th. We can set reminders up. So it reminds me 2 days before it's due, the day before it's due, the day it's due, etc. Right? So we're constantly kind of pinging them and saying, hey, don't forget, you have this webinar submittal due back in 2 days, 1 day, the day, etc. We're automatically creating a description of contents off the files that we're sending, and I can go ahead and forward this out. When I forward this out, we do a bunch of stuff in the background automatically. We take this file, we upload it to Bluebeam Studio. We're automatically creating a Bluebeam Studio session. We're inviting the individuals associated with this, aka Brian and Adam, to this submittal as well. We're creating a transmittal on this so that if when I send this document out, it's also going out with a transmittal. We're sending an email not only to Brian, not only to John, but we're also sending this to me as the originator of this as well, right? So I can jump in and I can take a look at that. Actually, there's that email right here. So I can jump to that email. It gives me a little bit of information about this, right? So I can go in here and take a look at all this information. It also has a link to take me directly into that. Right, so here's an example of our submittal transmittal. This is editable as well. Jump into my email, and I can see a lot of information associated with this submittal already. Right, I can see who invited me to it. It just happens to be me because we also invite the originator, of course. I can see the project name. I can see what it is. It's a submittal review that's due back on December 11th with the remarks associated with it. I have a link to take me directly into that studio session as well. So if I select that, automatically opens up a web browser, takes me to that studio session, brings up the file. We're opening up Bluebeam Studio, and now we're inside of Bluebeam. Our studio session is automatically connected. We can see right here, we can see the documents, and we can also see a record down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, a really neat thing about Bluebeam Studio is that we're automatically kind of recording every single action that's taken by anyone on the project or anyone on this submittal and saving that separately. So I'll come in here and let's just add a cloud really quickly. Right. And I can see in my record that Adam has now added a cloud. I can see the attendees. It's only me right now, but if John or Brian were to jump in, it would also show that. We also have a status area. So the thought here is that I want everyone to be able to mark up this document at the same time, add their notes. I want all of this on one document, right? When I'm done with my markups, let's say that's my entire markup for some reason, I can come in here and I can select my status. Now, the notification settings in Bluebeam Studio allow me to get an email as the originator of this submittal, or the originator of this studio session, I should say, when things take a turn, right? If everyone's finished, if one person selects that they're finished, I want a notification telling me that that person is done with it, right? I want a notification telling me that, hey, this person is done marking up. It's okay for you to, it's okay for you to grab it back. So I'll select finished. again, records that Adam set the status to finished, and I can go ahead and close out of this submittal now. Or I'm sorry, out of this Bluebeam document. Leave that session, and in about 5 or 6 minutes, I'll get an email saying that, hey, Adam selected that he was finished. But what we can also do is go into Newforma, go into my submittals, and take a look at all of these submittals that are under review, right? Here's our webinar submittal that we added together. I can drop that down, and I can take a look at all the information that's been associated with the submittal so far. Again, we're automatically logging this, so you guys don't have to play data entry in Excel anymore, right? Automatically logging it to the project-specific submittals, logging each individual workflow step, and logging and associating each individual file. So if I go in here, I can not only see the email log, right? That's that email that started this process, but I can also take a look at the file summary and what workflow those files were associated with. So this is the file as it existed as it was received from that email. This is the file as it looked when it was forwarded. So if I had gone into Newforma, made any edits to that before it was forwarded out, I would see that difference there. We're also showing you how you received it and how you forwarded it out. So I can come in here and I can say, oh, we received this via email, and then I went and forwarded it out via Bluebeam Studio. We can also take a look at the change log. And this shows every single creation and every single modification that's ever happened on this specific submittal. What we'll do here is I'm going to come in and I'm going to record this reviewer response. And what this is going to do is it's going to come in and say, hey, this is just a really quick way to kind of see the status of this. So if I don't necessarily want to wait for that email to come from Bluebeam, I can just jump in and I can see that Adam has joined the session. He's not in the session and his status is finished. Here's that email that I was mentioning. Actually, that's really good timing. Right? User status changes. Adam has selected finished. So now I know that Adam is done marking up the submittal and I can close it out, right? But just in Newforma, I can see that Brian never logged in, never joined this, and I can see that John never joined this as well, right? So maybe I need to reach out to Brian, maybe I need to reach out to John and say, hey, why didn't you guys ever respond to this? Newforma will also do that automatically, again, with that reminder by default in this environment, 2 days before it's due, the day it's due, the day after it's due, etc. Again, we want to automate as much as we can. We want to be that kind of reminder in the background. We don't need you guys to necessarily do that anymore. I can also retrieve this back. So Brian and John just aren't responding to it for whatever reason. When I retrieve it back, we're automatically connecting to Bluebeam, pulling that information down from Bluebeam Studio, creating that snapshot. So we're creating a log of every single action and saving that into Newforma as well as a PDF file. So I know exactly what actions were taken by who when. We're creating that activity report, and we're just pulling all that information back down into Newforma. So now we have one document. Everyone's marked up that document. We see our response down here is also the status of that attendee, if they joined, etc. So I have record of that as well. I can select my action, right, as the designer on record. And I can choose my next response, right? Maybe I have a question. I just want to email them really quickly. Maybe I want to forward for review again, right? Maybe this needs to go to some more individuals for review. Maybe I just want to respond and close this out very quickly. So my next action can be respond and close. And I'm going to record that response. We're compressing those files again, saving those into Newforma, and selecting how I want to send those and actually what files I want to send. This review response right here is the latest and greatest, but I can also say, you know what, I also want to say send the one that I forwarded out, right? The markups that I made before I sent that out to Brian and to John. I'm going to save this and send these files back out to the individual using Info Exchange, or we can also use email as well if you wanted to. Automatically create that email, send it back. But the really nice thing about Newforma is that we automatically know who sent me that information, who originally logged this submittal, who was this sent from. So what we're doing is we're automatically putting that information in the top. right? This originally came from Brian, so I'm going to send this back out to Brian. My action or my status list, let's just say that there were no exceptions taken. Put in my response, right? And I can create that close. But in addition to creating that close, if we needed to, we can also create related items. Again, it's all about making the information and the kind of construction management, construction administration tasks link together, right? So maybe hypothetically, this was an RFI, right? And this RFI is going to require a change order, right? We just know that based on the response. I can create an expected proposal request or an expected potential change order or something like that automatically that links back to this RFI. So when I get that, I can say, oh, this change order was associated with this proposal request that was associated with this RFI, and all the information and all the files and all the email, all the correspondence are automatically associated with that. So I can jump from one to the other to the other. I'm going to unselect that because I'm not going to create a related item right now, and I'm just going to create that close. These options pop up whenever we have a info exchange transfer. Realistically, they're very simplified questions, and they can be set to a default state or they're sticky, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But the questions become, okay, I'm sending this response back out to Brian. Who do I want to send this to? Only Brian? Maybe I not only want to send this to Brian, but the rest of his fellow company members as well. If I'm sending a group of files, do I want them to be able to download partial contents? Let's say there are 4 files associated with this response. Do I want them to have to download all 4, or am I okay with them just going in and downloading one or the other? Right? Do I want them to have to log in order to view this information? How sensitive is it? Is it okay if it's just an email with a link in it and that link just automatically downloads all the attachments? How do I want that to work? Upload those documents, automatically back over to Brian, send Brian an email with a link in it, automatically create a submittal transmittal for this close. And there we go. So that's a really nice kind of example of our submittal workflow inside of Newforma when married with Bluebeam Studio Prime. So a really cool thing about this is that we're not changing the workflow, right? I'm still receiving that via an email, saving that into Newforma. The next step is where I get to make that choice, right? Do I want to send it via Bluebeam Studio, or do I want to send it using Info Exchange or something like that? So let's recap really quickly. Right. So we're using Bluebeam Studio Prime, right? It's a option for Bluebeam Studio customers to upgrade into the Prime environment. We're logging this information automatically, so you guys don't have to live in Excel or play data entry any longer. You can invite multiple reviewers at the same exact time, right? Have them all mark up this document at the same exact time. So at the end of this, you have one document with all the markups together instead of having different documents, one for each reviewer. We're recording every action taken through that feature inside of Bluebeam Studio, right? To the extent where if someone selects a tool, it's being recorded inside of Bluebeam. And we're exporting that when you close it out and saving that back into the submittal. So if I need to, I can jump into it. And we're also taking care of notifications automatically by integrating with that Bluebeam Studio and allowing you to get a notification based on status change. The thought process there is that we don't want you to have to go into that studio session and keep checking or keep going into record review response just to see if everyone's finished, right? We want that to be automated. We don't want you guys to have to kind of keep on going back and checking. So I'd love to take any questions. There was a clarification made, and I guess I misspoke. The Avitru master spec integration that I highlighted is currently a work in progress. So to answer the question that came up earlier, as of right now, we have an import that you can import all of your specs. However, we are working hand in hand with Avitru to get that master spec connector out to our current customers and anyone else that joins the Newforma family. So if there aren't any questions and this was interesting to you, please feel free to reach out. You can either email us directly at projectcenter@newforma.com, or if you want to speak to someone, we have a phone number that's 603-625-6212 in the USA and Canada. Feel free to email us if you want contact information for our ANZ offices, our UK office, whatever we can do to help. We are seeing a few questions. One of them is if we're working on a Procore connector. So at this point, we are working on a Procore connector. We see that coming very, very soon. I've heard that we're in the final stages. I don't want to give an exact date because things change in the development. But the thought with the Procore connector is that if you guys are using Procore, or I should say if the let's just say the contractor team from an engineering or architecture or design perspective is using Procore and they send you an RFI or submittal, we want that to automatically log into Newforma so you guys can take your internal workflow, take the next step to get that answered, and then close it, automatically send it back to Procore. And we're currently working on that connector now. Is this service cloud-based or do we need to install it on our own server? So the Bluebeam Studio connector is using their cloud product, Bluebeam Studio. Bluebeam is an install that does need to go on the machine. So you would need to purchase and install Bluebeam Review. Can you view Newforma Info Exchange in Project Center? So you can view Newforma Info Exchange status inside of Project Center. However, as an internal user, you do also have a login for Info Exchange. So it is a website. If you open up Google Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Edge, whatever your preferred Explorer is, you can log into Info Exchange, and an internal individual does have access to that as well. Best Newforma webinar I've attended. I appreciate that. When will the recording be available? After we're done, I'm going to kind of grab this recording, turn it into something that's viewable, send it to our marketing team, and they'll put it on the Newforma website. So the Newforma website has a webinar section that has all of our webinars in it. I'm also going to ask marketing to put it on the Newforma customer area. So if you are a current customer of Newforma, you should be able to see it within the customer webinar section as well. Can you create a company-wide report showing outstanding submittals? Absolutely. We have a nice reporting tool inside of Newforma where you can not only create a report off of one specific project, let's just say you're the PM on that project and you want to create a project based on specific parameters, you can absolutely do that. You can also create multi-project reports. So you can say, hey, I want to see all outstanding submittals based on that my projects area, or select a few, or etc. So absolutely, you can do that. We also integrate with Microsoft Power BI. So if you have a Power BI license, we can get some reports in there that allow you really to drill down on specific things. Same thing with a weekly log report. So another question about what else we're integrating with. Right now, we're working on integrations with Bluebeam that just released, and we're working on a Procore integration. We're also working and speaking with PlanGrid right now. Those are the only three that we've announced and talking about freely. We're always looking for other products that our current customer list and our prospective customers want us to integrate with. So if you have an example of someone that you'd like us to work with, let us know. Also, we have a lot of external companies like the Avitru integration. They're integrating with us. We're not writing it specifically for Avitru. So really hats off to that company for seeing the potential, right, and seeing those customers that we have together. So if you have an idea, feel free to reach out to us and feel free to reach out to that other company. We have an open API to allow individuals to write to us as well. You mentioned an upgrade for Newforma to add Bluebeam. So we need to purchase Newforma Bluebeam and upgrade for the connector. So there's no additional charge from Newforma to utilize what we've shown today. The only thing you need is you need Bluebeam and you need Bluebeam Studio Prime as a company. So Newforma, we're not going to charge you for it. If you're a current Newforma user that has Bluebeam Studio Prime and you'd like to get this connected, put in a support ticket and we can get you the information to get that configured for your implementation of Newforma. Is the Revit extension an additional cost? So in February, I think, I'm doing a webinar specifically on our BIM integration. That would be our Revit extension, and that would also be Navisworks Manage. There is an additional charge for our Revit integration. So if you're a current customer, feel free to reach out to your account manager if you'd like to see the BIM, Revit, Navisworks Manage integration. They'll most likely reach out to me or someone on my team, and we can set up a demonstration for that. Another question is, how do the contractors and other entities access the information? Up to now, I have only worked with Newforma Project Cloud, so I'm curious about that type of access. So Newforma Project Cloud is a kind of a all-encompassed web application. It's a software as a service application. So we spin up a website for you. You can invite people to it, and it's all kind of contained through that one website. Through Newforma, you have your client that runs on your computer, the application, and then you also have Info Exchange, and Info Exchange being that project website. So contractors, external entities would log in through Newforma Info Exchange, and they'd be able to access a lot of the information that you've decided to share with them using Newforma. If you have questions on that, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a one-on-one discussion with you, show you a little bit more about what Info Exchange is and how it works, and kind of I'll call it the ecosystem of Newforma Project Center, which is our client server application. I think that's it. I'd love to answer any more questions. I really appreciate you all coming. It's been fantastic. I really appreciate the kind words. Again, if questions or comments, or if you're interested in learning a little bit more, please reach out. I or anyone else on my team would love to have a conversation with each and every one of you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.